Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I got hit with a bunch of stuff all at once in the same day about Eric Helms. Because you guys know I did that video the other day covering kind of the nonsense behind the 5-day-a-week full body he's doing that was in the Jeff Nippard video. And there's been some blowback after that. First of all, it has to do with Lyle McDonald, who, Lyle McDonald hates me. Lyle McDonald absolutely hates me. He's hated me for like 6 or 7 years. And the reality is, I will always give Lyle credit. Lyle is a smart guy, probably one of the foremost thinkers here in the online fitness industry. He really is. He gets mad because he feels like I've plagiarized and copied him. And here's what I'll say. Lyle, if you want me to quit repeating what you say, stop saying intelligent things. All right? And stop putting out methods at work, and I won't talk about them. Right? Quit putting out methods at work, and I'll quit repeating them to people. Pretty straightforward. Just say more stupid shit. That'll solve the problem. All right, guys. Let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of Speechcraft, and let's talk about it. Actually, that's not true, Lyle. If you said stupid shit, I'd make fun of you like I'm about to do to Eric. So, over to Eric Helms. Before we jump into the diatribe that happened on Lyle's page, which I'll probably link in the comments for you guys down below somewhere, probably sticky it to the top if I can remember to do so. Remind me to do so, guys. Remind me to pin it to the top. But then his Instagram. A coach friend of mine linked me his Instagram. It's kind of like, get ready, avert thine eyes. We just had this whole situation where a lot of people were talking about kind of the banter that went on between him and Nipples during their posing. And, we already talk enough about the bodybuilding world, right? We already say enough things about the bodybuilding world. Then he puts his stuff up on his Instagram. Before you guys go to Eric's Instagram looking, remember, it may not be safe for work, and while I can appreciate the fact that he did cover things up in the front and back nude that he edited, I think maybe that black dot covering the chocolate starfish could stand to be a little bit bigger, Eric. We don't need to see that much of your butt. But yeah, guys, it may not be safe for work depending upon what's going on before you guys go and check it out or anything. But it's like, we say all this stuff about the bodybuilding world, and then he puts up stuff like that. It's like, okay, Eric, man, I didn't need to see all that. And to the coach who linked it to me, dude, don't do that, man. I was in the middle of my breakfast. So, over to what happened with Lyle. Lyle jumped all over him about something, and it's funny because it's something I have hammered Eric and Greg Knuckles over in the past. Is this whole fat-free mass index thing, right? Because what do? They create a straw man argument, right? All of us who have been talking about this fat-free mass index for years, I'm talking 6 or 7 years we've been discussing this stuff. I've discussed it on my first YouTube channel before this one, and look at the date on this one. That generally speaking, even the genetic freaks are going to be limited to a fat-free mass index of around 25 when they cut to under 10% body fat. That's always what we say, right? Isn't that what we say every time when they cut to under 10% body fat? We know sumo wrestlers have a 28. Right? You can eat your way to a higher lean body mass, right? Food has an anabolic drug-like effect in high enough quantities. Yeah, you can get roid-like gains if you're willing to gain 3 pounds of fat for every pound of muscle that you put on. Of course you can. You're not going to keep it when you diet down, but you can do it. Like, no one is arguing against that. We're talking about when they go to lower body fats. And we know from DEXA scans that even if you maintain all your muscle, your fat-free mass goes down. It goes down because some of the connective tissue and stuff through your body fat is actually lean mass. And what we're saying is that that's very rare. And I mean, a perfect example, I always take my bro Nikola Ella, who's a coach. The guy has like 20 years of very, very, very hard training experience. He's a natty pro. People get angry when I defend him and say he's a fake natty. And it's not necessarily just on the fat-free mass index. You can look at him and tell that he is genetically way above average in terms of structure, everything else. Nico is also brutally strong. He deadlifts like 650. He can squat 550. At under 200 pounds body weight, by the way. I've seen him do 315 on the bench press for 7 reps. Okay, he's no slouch on the big weights. And that's taken him 20 years. He didn't break a 500-pound squat till he had been lifting for 15 years. And then over the next 5, he got to a 550. His fat-free mass index, when he's lean, is still less than 25. Okay, perspective. Even he is still at like 24.8 when he's ripped. And he's a genetic freak with 20 years of extremely hard experience under his belt, who is also himself a coach. Most of you guys are not going to get to a 24. I don't care how hard you train. When you're at 9% body fat, you're not going to do it. You know, Eric and all these guys say, well, you know, these old school strongmen, but they reached it, as if you're actually accurately measuring their body fat, as if you actually know their numbers because you really know their real height and weight because they didn't fudge it at all. Maybe that guy who claimed to be 250 was only 235. Like, you don't have their exact stats provable, and you guys are estimating their subcutaneous body fat when you may or may not be right, because a lot of people, your body fat is slightly higher or slightly lower than you think it is sometimes, right? They're just estimating, but the point we come to, none of those guys are below that, so he always cites them, right? Eric and Greg both pull this, and that's a straw man argument. For people who don't understand what that is, you take an argument that someone's making, and you change the argument to be one that you can destroy, and you don't actually fight against their original argument because you know you'll lose, right? So it's like someone saying that the sky is dark at night other than on the full moon, makes a statement like that. And since you can't disprove that, you go say, well, the sky isn't dark. I'm looking right now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and according to my calculate, you see what I'm saying? That is a straw man argument. You're not arguing against what they're arguing about. It's not that that's the limit of the fat-free mass index. We know that you can fat your way past that. You're not going to do it lean. And every single one of those people who say that, none of their clients are at 25 when they diet them down either. And Eric himself is like 22 when he cuts, right? He steps on stage with like a 22 fat-free mass index. He can't reach the natural limit, he says, that isn't real. He says, oh, it's just higher than that. That's just not true. He can't even get within 10 pounds of muscle of it. With all his years of training and having done a cycle of gear, admittedly, publicly, right? He can't reach it. So basically, the summary of what Lyle said was, hey, since you're just going to pull anecdote, because your 5-day-a-week full body is not based on science, it's not based on evidence, it's based on your personal anecdote. So if you're going to pull these old school strongmen as references, and they're clearly based upon your calculations way beyond the natural limit that you can't hit, maybe instead of doing these stupid-ass routines, you should do their routines instead. Instead of your goofy-ass anecdote routine, since you're just making stuff up, not based on science or evidence, you're just going to go on anecdote. Why don't you just run the routines of these old-school strongmen who had 26 and 27 fat-free mass indexes according to your calculations, so that maybe you could be higher than 22 for the first time in your life? That's paraphrasing more or less what he was implying. And I think that's hilarious. And I think that is a solid rip at Eric, because Eric has defended and towed that line all this time. Oh, no, you can get above that when he can't get anywhere near it. And then instead of running actual scientific-based programs, he says, well, I can get more training volume doing this. And, volume's the primary driver of hypertrophy because of Dr. Tad Broenfeld. All right, which is something that Lyle has disputed heavily. And I'm going to tend to agree with Lyle on that. And I'm going to base that upon anecdote. We could argue about the data, but I think Lyle's got a good assessment of the data. Very well thought out. I think he does present a good point about all the data on volume and the volume studies. I think Minnow's doing a good job with that too. And you've got all that, but then we have to step back and assess the real world. Then we have to step back and assess what have all of us observed in lifters and athletes for decades in the iron game. Those of us who are not researchers. When we observe the cumulative evidence, we know that there is a finite limit to how much quality volume stimulates new muscle growth. We know that junk volume doesn't do it. We've all watched it for years. We've been watching it. And we all know that tension is a primary factor in creating lasting hypertrophy that sticks with you. Right? That's anecdotal observation. That's been my observations of observing lifters for 2 decades. You got guys like Lyle who are on the side of saying, well, the evidence actually supports that anecdote. The evidence based upon this and the evidence against it is actually weaker than people think, and the conclusions don't even support the data and the math. And he's done long breakdowns of it. So when you have someone like him who his actual summary of the data as himself a intellectual matches what most of us have observed over the decades in the real world, you kind of have to say, he's probably right. I mean, so he goes in hard on Eric over all this stuff because Eric is not really supported by the data. And that's the problem with a lot of these evidence-based guys. Usually the evidence-based guys, the vast majority of them are basically weak pussies who's scared to get under a heavy barbell these days. And they use just as much anecdote as they accuse the bros of using. It's just that they use their own personal anecdote, and if it happens to disagree with the data, then they ignore that data and they go over towards, again, the Broenfeld stuff. Because, I mean, we're getting right back to junk bro science at this point anyways, and we start saying things like, well, 45 work sets for quads, 30 work sets for upper body, and getting supposedly better muscle growth than this other stuff. But none of these coaches who endorse that, how many of them have changed their paying clients who are paying them for results over to that data? I don't think they're doing it. I don't think that they are. Not their paying clients, not the money, the guys who, if they don't get results, they don't get paid from them anymore. They'll say it in the public arena when it's to get views. But when it comes to their clients, they're not going to apply it. Why do you think that is? Because they know it's bullshit. They know it's bullshit. And the only reason any of these guys promote this excessive junk volume is because they're all lazy pussies in the weight room. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. And they're hoping that if they just do enough really easy junk volume that they can get away with not actually really training hard. That's actually what it comes down to. They just don't want to get under heavy weights regularly. Let's just be realistic. That's what it is. And he called him on that, though, essentially of saying, well, if we're going to go with anecdote, why don't you use the routines of the guys who you claim surpass these natty limits, since you can't seem to do it with the routines you write yourself? Like, bam. Stick a fork in him. He's done. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.